that wonderful story in Luke chapter 10 about Martha and Mary. And I don't know about you, but a lot of these Bible stories challenge me in a good way. This is very brief, and I'm going to give it in more my terms. This was in the house of Lazarus, and we know are familiar, and these are Lazarus' sisters, Martha and Mary. And Jesus has actually come over to their house, and they're going to have more people coming over and have a wonderful party together. So what does Martha do? Well, we have a lot to do. We've got to get on these things and get everything done, or nothing will be able to be done. And look what her sister Mary is doing. Her sister Mary is ignoring all that work, and she's going at the feet of Jesus, just riveted by everything about his countenance and what he is sharing. Well, Martha looks back and notices that we have things to do, Mary. So she goes to Jesus and she says, are you going to tell her that she needs to help me and do a little bit more work? And we can feel that conundrum, can't we? Because we all have Martha within us, that duty-bound consciousness. We have to live in this earth. But Jesus goes right to Martha and says, more or less, who is doing what should be done? Meaning, are we anchored in God? Or are we anchored in the practical things that this outer life is telling us we need to do? Now, we have to read this story and realize, yes, we need Martha, and we need Mary. We can't go through life and just be in heaven's bliss and experience that. We have to get things done. But of utmost importance, at the number one presence peak of our life, should be our need to connect with God. Again, to become more God conscious. And that's what Mary's doing in this moment. Annie Besant, a theosophist, had a description that is really good visually for me on this front. She says over here, we need to become a conscious charioteer. She's talking about the soul consciousness being the charioteer. If our soul consciousness is that, notice the horses are the consciousness of our mental body, the consciousness of our emotional body, which are needing that soul consciousness to rein in, so to speak. Not limit, but channel. And that's what we are developing as we grow, is that our consciousness be that charioteer, our soul consciousness. In other words, for soul consciousness, we talk about these things, or the outer world uses Christ consciousness. That is our soul consciousness. That is where we ultimately know oneness with Christ on that level. So seeing that as our conscious charioteer of our being. Well, to do this, we need some help, don't we? Flower talked about a lens that we need to kind of look through no matter what we are experiencing in consciousness. So when she started talking about this lens, I kept thinking of a kaleidoscope, or you might picture a prism. But all of a sudden, if I look through that, it changes the world upon which I'm looking at. It adds color, adds patterns, adds a new vibrancy all to it. And so no matter where our consciousness is, even in this moment, it's about looking through this kaleidoscope through a three-pronged approach. And Flower described it as this triangle with God's eye in the middle, and you can actually think of the eye of God. You can also think of, up here is our third eye in a sense, that is looking out to the inner worlds. And if we can view every situation we can under its truth, under its goodness, and its beauty, just those three things, she says it's like, doesn't matter what consciousness we're in, it just kind of melts away, and almost like being filled with helium, it rises towards that soul consciousness.